There's a version of the Street Glide that will run past 100,000 miles with nothing but oil changes and tires. And there's a version that looks identical in the parking lot. Same batwing fairing, same stance, same badge, that will quietly drain $4,000 out of your savings before you even understand what's happening. Same model, same paint, sometimes the same asking price. The only difference is the year stamped on the frame, and Harley never sent out a press release explaining which years fall on which side of that line. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly which model years the documented data says to walk away from, which years the numbers say will outlast you, and one specific year, a year most buyers scroll right past, that might be the single smartest used bagger purchase in America right now. But here's the part that's gonna sting. The most dangerous year on this list isn't an old one. It's the year everyone assumes is safe. First, you need to understand why this matters more on a Street Glide than on almost any other motorcycle you could buy. Walk into any used dealership in America and count the baggers on the floor. Have you ever noticed how many of them are Street Glides? Since its introduction in 2006, this bike became the best-selling motorcycle in its class, which means the used market is flooded with them. Every year, every mileage, every condition. That's good news and bad news at the same time. Good, because supply gives you leverage. Bad, because when a market is that deep, sellers know most buyers can't tell a golden year from a landmine, and the two frequently sit side by side, wearing nearly identical price tags. Think about what that actually means for you. A new Street Glide crossed $25,999 for the 2024 redesign, which pushed an entire wave of riders toward the used market at exactly the moment used inventory peaked. Prices on clean used examples routinely land in the mid-teens to low 20s depending on year and miles. And here's the trap. The spread between a problem year and a bulletproof year is often just $1,500 to $2,500 on the sticker. That's the whole difference. $2,000 of purchase price separating you from what could be $4,000 in repairs or from a bike that never asks you for anything. And depreciation on this model doesn't behave like depreciation on other bikes. A Street Glide sheds its steepest value in the first 3 years, then the curve flattens into something closer to a plateau, which means the used market is full of 8 to 12-year-old examples that have essentially stopped losing money. Buy the right year in that plateau, and you're riding for close to free. Buy the wrong year, and the repair bills arrive on a machine that will never appreciate its way out of them. So the real question isn't whether you can afford a Street Glide. It's whether you know which one you're actually looking at. Most buyers don't, and the sellers are counting on that. Before we name names, you deserve to know how this ranking was built, because this channel doesn't do vibes. Every avoid window in this video is anchored in documented evidence. Federal safety recall records, organized by defect type and units affected. Complaint volume filed by real owners with the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. Dependability patterns consistent with J.D. Power motorcycle study findings. And depreciation behavior tracked through KBB and NADA valuation data. Where owner-reported failure patterns show up, we tell you they're owner-reported. Where the fix is documented, we tell you what it costs. And let's be clear about something else, because it matters. This is not an anti-Harley video. The second half of this list is going to make the case that certain Street Glide years are among the most durable American touring bikes ever built, and the data backs that up just as hard. Good years get the same treatment as bad ones. Now, the first avoid window. It begins with the most celebrated redesign in the model's history, which is exactly why so many people got burned by it. In 2014, Harley launched Project Rushmore, the biggest single-year overhaul the touring line had ever seen. New fairing, new brakes, new infotainment. The motorcycle press loved it. And underneath all that praise, the 2014 and 2015 model years were quietly accumulating one of the heaviest recall loads in the model's history. Start with the clutch. In late 2014, 105,746 touring motorcycles from the 2014 model year were recalled because a component in a hydraulic clutch master cylinder could fail, reducing the pressure needed to keep the clutch disengaged. Sit with that number for a second. Then months later, it happened again. A second, separate hydraulic clutch recall, covering 45,901 more 2014 and 2015 touring bikes, including the Street Glide and Street Glide Special, because the system could fail to generate enough lift to disengage the clutch, after the bike sat parked. The documented risk in the federal filing wasn't subtle. Start that bike in gear or shift into gear and the motorcycle can lunge. A loss of control scenario, the recall paperwork explicitly tied to crash risk. What happens when a 900-pound bagger decides to move before you do? And it didn't stop at the clutch. These same years were hit with a recall for saddlebag mounting receptacles that couldn't reliably keep the saddlebags attached at speed, bags separating from a moving motorcycle, creating a road hazard behind you. Combined, the recall actions across the 2014 to 2015 touring line touched over 185,000 bikes in the US alone. Add the heat. Rushmore's early years, including the twin-cooled variants across the touring platform, became notorious in owner communities for cooking the rider's right leg in traffic. Not a recall, but a livability issue that shows up over and over in owner complaints. Here's what makes this window genuinely tricky for you as a used buyer. Every one of those recalls had a free dealer fix. So a 2014 with complete documented recall service history is a very different machine than a 2014 with gaps in its paperwork. Would you know how to check? Because the seller isn't going to volunteer it. The federal recall database is free and searchable by vehicle identification number, and any Harley dealership can pull the complete campaign history on that VIN in about 2 minutes. Open recalls, closed recalls, dates of service. 5 minutes of homework on a purchase this size against defects this documented. Skipping that step isn't optimism, it's volunteering. And if you're thinking the answer is simply to buy the years right after, when the recalls were supposedly behind them, that's where the second window opens. Rushmore didn't just change the hardware. It put a color touchscreen in the fairing of a motorcycle for the first time in the model's history. And the 2014 through 2016 boombox era became the proving ground, with owners as the test subjects. Owner-reported patterns from these years read like a tech support forum. Screens freezing mid-ride, systems rebooting on their own, erratic display behavior, audio cutting out. Annoying on a car? Different story when you're using that screen for navigation 2 states from home. And the electrical gremlins weren't confined to the radio. The 2016 model year in particular drew documented owner complaints around ages and lighting, the kind of intermittent electrical behavior that's cheap to live with and expensive to chase. Then, 2016 delivered its own recall echo, another documented defect in the clutch master cylinder, where the clutch could fail to disengage after extended parking. The same failure mode, the same loss of control risk, 2 years after the first wave supposedly ended it. Ask yourself an honest question. If a system gets recalled, redesigned, and then generates the same defect pattern again, do you trust the third version? Here's the multi-brand context, because fairness matters. Harley wasn't alone in fumbling early infotainment. Indian's Ride Command had teething issues at launch too. And every manufacturer that bolted a tablet to a motorcycle in the mid-2010s paid tuition. The difference is what it costs you out of warranty. A failed boombox head unit on these years is a 4-figure replacement if you pay retail. And these bikes are now a decade past their warranty coverage. Every one of these electrical issues now lands on the current owner's wallet, which might be yours. But even this window isn't the one that worries me most. The most expensive mistake on this list is the year that looks cleanest on paper, the year sellers price at a premium, the year buyers specifically hunt for, and almost nobody warns you about it. 2017, the year of the Milwaukee 8 107. Brand new engine, 1,746 cc, 4 valves per cylinder, 111 pound-feet of torque at 3,250 RPM, smoother, stronger, quieter than the twin cam it replaced. The press called it the best touring engine Harley ever built. Buyers paid a premium to get the first year of it, and used listings for 2017 models still lean on that new engine halo to justify their asking prices. So why is it in the avoid half of this video? Because first-year engines carry first-year problems, and the M8's was hiding in the oiling system. The early Milwaukee 8, 2017 and 2018 production, extending into some 2019 units, developed a widely documented condition owners call wet sumping, oil migrating into the crankcase and pooling there instead of returning to the tank, because the original 6-lobe oil pump couldn't scavenge fast enough. The flywheel whips that pooled oil into an aerated froth. Aerated oil doesn't scavenge, doesn't lubricate properly, And the cascade begins. Power loss at highway speed, excessive heat, oil forced out through the breathers into the air cleaner, and in the severe documented cases, a momentary loss of oil pressure. What happens inside an engine that loses oil pressure, even for a moment, at 75 miles per hour on the interstate? Nothing you want to pay for. The telling detail is what Harley did next. In 2019, the factory quietly moved to an upgraded 8-lobe oil pump design specifically to improve scavenging. A running change, not a recall, which means no free fix, no owner notification, and no obligation to the people who bought the 2017 and 2018 bikes. The remedy on an affected early bike is a new design or aftermarket pump, and that's a real repair bill, not a software update. Now, honesty requires this. Plenty of 2017 and 2018 owners rack up trouble-free miles, especially riders doing shorter, cooler trips where sumping rarely reveals itself. This is a probability problem, not a certainty. But you're not buying probabilities in the abstract. You're buying one specific motorcycle, sold by someone who knows whether it smokes on cold startup and isn't required to tell you. The bike that looks safest on paper carries the least advertised risk in the lineup. There is one test that costs you nothing. Insist on a stone-cold startup. Not a bike that was warmed up for you before you arrived. A bike that sat overnight. Watch the exhaust in the first 30 seconds. A puff of blue-gray smoke on a cold start, or an air cleaner with oil residue around it. Is the M8 telling you what the listing didn't? A seller who refuses a cold start on a 2017 or 2018 is answering your question anyway. Because something clearly did. The later M8 bikes built a reliability reputation the early ones never had. That turning point is where this story flips. Two engineering decisions separate the problem areas from the golden ones, and neither showed up in a commercial. The first happened in 2019, that 8-lobe oil pump revision, which addressed the scavenging weakness at the root of the sumping saga. Riders on post-revision engines routinely report 30,000 plus miles with no oiling drama. The design was sound, the early pump wasn't. The second happened earlier, and gets less credit, the slow maturation of the twin-cam 103. By the early 2010s, the twin-cam platform had been through its painful adolescence. The cam chain tensioner era was behind it, and the 103, at 1,690cc, had settled into that unglamorous sweet spot every engineer recognizes. Old enough that the flaws were engineered out, young enough that parts, knowledge, and specialists are everywhere. Here's the pattern worth tattooing somewhere. The best years to own are almost never the years with headlines. They're the boring years. The final years of a proven platform, or the years right after a fix. Redesign years sell the dream. Refinement years keep it running. Hold that thought, because it's about to tell you exactly which street glides to hunt. The first golden window is 2019 through 2021. Post-revision Milwaukee 8, the infotainment era matured into genuine usability, and the complaint volume on these years drops off a cliff compared to 2014 through 2018. These are the bikes that made the M8's reputation: strong, smooth, and boringly dependable, and the used market knows it, which is why 2020 and 2021 examples hold their values stubbornly on KBB and NHTSA curves. You will not steal one. You'll pay fair money for a very good motorcycle, and 5 years from now, it will still be worth real money, because slow depreciation cuts both ways. If your budget reaches these years, the smart play inside the window is at 2020, late enough that every early M8 lesson was baked in, early enough to sit below the price jump of the newer generations. But what if your budget doesn't reach that far? What if you have $12,000, not 18? That's where this list gets interesting. The second golden window is older, cheaper, and criminally overlooked. 2012 and 2013, mature twin-cam 103. Pre-Rushmore, which means pre-touchscreen, no boombox to fail, because there's no boombox at all. Cable simplicity, where the later bikes carry complexity. The owner communities have a phrase for these bikes: they just run. And that reputation shows up in the data as low complaint volume and a resale floor that simply refuses to drop. These bikes found their price years ago and stopped falling, which means your depreciation risk is merely zero. But within this window, one specific year stands above the other. It's not the newest bike on this list. It's not the strongest. And when I tell you which year it is, some of you are going to argue in the comments. which is exactly why it's the pick. 2013. The last Street Glide of the pre-Rushmore era is, by the convergence of every data source in this video, the single smartest used by in the model's entire run. Look at what it is. The Twin Cam 103 in its final most refined production year. Every early twin cam weakness long since engineered out, with a decade plus of proven longevity now behind it, and six-figure mileage examples documented across owner communities. Look at what it isn't. It isn't carrying the 2014-2015 recall load. No hydraulic clutch defect history, no saddlebag mounting defect, none of it. It has no touchscreen to fail, no early production M8 oil pump to second guess, no first-year anything. Every system on a 2013 had years of production behind it before that bike ever rolled off the line. Because it sits on the old side of the Rushmore styling divide, the market prices the 2013 like an outdated bike instead of a debugged one. Clean examples routinely trade thousands below equivalent condition 2014s and 2015s, the very years carrying the heaviest documented defect history in this video. Read that again. The market is charging me more for the years with the recalls, and less for the year without them, purely because of a fairing shape and a radio. That's not a market being rational. That's a market being cosmetic. And every cosmetic market has a seam where informed buyers quietly win. The 2013 Street Glide is that seam. The honest trade-off? You give up the touchscreen, the linked brakes, the Rushmore fairing venting. What you get back is mechanical simplicity, a legendary engine at full maturity, near zero remaining depreciation, and the lowest documented defect profile of any year in this story. If your riding is measured in miles instead of menus, the math isn't close. And here's the thing about everything you just watched. In the full catalog of Harley's touring and cruiser lines, the Street Glide's history is actually one of the cleaner ones. The next model in this series has a year so rough that its own loyalists warn strangers away from it in the comment sections of listing sites. A year where the documented complaint pattern makes the 2017 sumping story look like a rounding error. If you own a Softail, you might already suspect which year I mean. Before that video drops, put your prediction in the comments. And if you've owned any Street Glide year on this list, good or bad, tell us what it did to you. The database is public. Your odometer is the part they can't argue with.